Hello, Bob McCauley, owner of the Watershed Wellness Center, and I'd like to do a rebuttal of an interview that Kevin Gianni did with Dr. Robert Young. Young wrote the book pH Miracle, which, Dr. Young and I agree on a lot of things. He's a supporter of ionized water. I am too. He's a supporter of raw fruits and vegetables. I am too. He has a lot of cook food recipes in that book. I don't know why. I don't know why you would promote a raw food diet and then offer people healthy, alternatives to cooked foods. I mean, cooked foods are sustenance. Raw fruits and vegetables are rejuvenating, and that's it. So you'll never find that in one of my books. I guess there's lots of people out there that'll tell you to go ahead and eat cooked foods, and here's some great healthy cooked food recipes, when in fact there are no healthy foods. There are really bad really bad cooked foods, and then extremely bad cooked foods, and that's it. Anyway, in the beginning of this interview, I mean, I've been a vegetarian now for 30 years. I haven't eaten meat, and any of that time, and I would never eat meat again. There's definitely no way I would ever consider consuming meat again. But the things that Dr. Young says about meat eaters and about meat itself is just really astounding, and it's kind of way too far. I would never say these types of things. I don't believe him. Meat has no nutritional value, he says, other than to just destroy life. Eating meat is why people stink. Why they have body odor, why their elimination smells. You can smell a meat eater. You can look at their eyes and skin and tell they eat meat. Well, it's partially true, but I just think he goes way too far. He says it's probably one of the worst foods. The worst of all the foods you can possibly eat is meat. Well, I think there's lots worse. There's processed foods, fried foods, fried chicken, whatever, deep fried foods. There's lots of really bad foods. So meat is not on the top of the list of all the bad things to eat. Animal protein should be avoided, and what we should consume is spirulina and chlorella, because they're 60% protein, and they've got a broad array of nutrients. And this is one of the biggest problems that vegans and vegetarians make, is they don't get protein, and the source is algae, spirulina and chlorella. So he's making a big mistake with that one. I don't know where he gets his protein. It'd be interesting to hear him address that question. You don't need a lot of protein, but you do need high quality protein, and you'll find that in spirulina and chlorella, 18 different amino acids in the right ratio to one another. Whereas cooked animal protein, you'll see there, a chicken has huge amounts of methionine, and beef has very little, and this. So you see a very uneven amino acid complement, and then always never the full complement, just always a truncated amount of amino acids. So not a great variety. But one of the other things that he says in this video is that people actually start looking like the animals that they eat. Now, he says, he's actually has seen this. He suggests to us he's seen this happen. So I would like to know physiologically, scientifically, how somebody eats pork every day and then they start to look like a pig, or eats chicken every day and they start to look like a chicken or a fish, or maybe they look like an egg after such a long period of time. I don't know what it is, but I just can't believe that statement. It's kind of bizarre. I hear people say this all the time. None of them are really health advocates or anything, but if you're going to take somebody seriously, you would want to really challenge a statement like that. And I find that rather bizarre. I'd like to physiologically hear exactly how you can eat a cow and then end up looking like a cow. I don't know, maybe you got a big nose, or I don't know what, but it's just really a strange statement. But around 5 minutes into this video, you hear Dr. Young, and now he really takes off against not only mushrooms, but algae. And he really gets into just kind of making some claims, and I don't know where he comes from in these things. He says, where do you find algae and fungi? Where you find them? Under rotting, decaying bodies, under dead bodies, in stagnant poisonous lakes, toxic poisonous lakes. I mean, when you eat, he says in the video, when you eat algae and fungus and bacteria, what we call bacteria probiotics, you take one step closer to the grave. So I'm a big promoter of probiotics. It's one of the 7 components of my health protocol. Big promoter of Acidophilus and bifidus. It's fermented foods. There's all sorts of other bacteria that are really healthy. So there are very poisonous bacteria, and they're very poisonous mushrooms, but they're also very poisonous algae. But they're also very extremely healthy algae, spirulina and chlorella, name a couple, and very healthy mushrooms, very healthy bacteria. So the whole thing doesn't really, work very well for me. I mean, you can't just make the blanket statement that all these things are really, really dangerous, and you're making a big mistake by consuming any of them. And then the biggest mistake that Dr. Young makes about algae, and he starts comparing it with yeast and mold and fungus. Well, those are in the fungi kingdom, and then chlorella, spirulina, they're in the plant kingdom. Now, these are 2 totally different kingdoms here. They don't cross. You can't take the 2 of those and put them together and make them make a new species or anything like that. You could genetically modify something, but that's not crossing them. That's not really the way that you would want to go about something like that, and it just wouldn't work. You can't cross an animal with a plant. It's just not going to happen. Again, you could genetically modify something, but that's gene splicing, and that's not really crossing 2 things to form something new. So the big mistake here, of course, if you listen carefully to this tape, is that he is comparing these 2 completely different things. Algae to yeast, mold, and fungus. Now, yeast and mold and fungus are recycling agents. Absolutely. Not algae. Algae is not a recycling agent. I don't know where he comes up with that. Algae is a plant. All the plants in the world originally came from one plant known as chlorella, and that chlorella is the most powerful food in the world. So, plants require sunlight and CO2. Fungi don't require sunlight, so they don't produce chlorophyll, and plants do. So, they're 2 totally different things, and he's trying to, compare them with each other. It just doesn't work. And one of the things that he says in here is that, you look under an electron microscope with somebody with lung cancer, and you'll find things that look like, carbuncles and algae and mushrooms and fungi and all that kind of stuff. Once again, yeah, you could find some recycling agents. I mean, when you're no longer part of nature, because you have a disease such as cancer, especially cancer is a good example. Nature begins to recycle you back into nature. You're no longer a part of it. It's trying to kind of say, hey, you don't belong here. We need to get you back into the natural mode. You put so many toxins in your body, and now you're very sick, and this isn't natural, and you're not natural, so it recycles you through yeast, mold, fungus. Now, algae is not one of those. So, but he's claiming clearly here that algae is a recycling agent when it is not. It is one of the most powerful foods in the world, and very good at eating up toxins. Algae is a toxin sponge, which is one of the reasons why you should never take it out of a lake, why it should be cultivated in a controlled environment. Either spirulina or chlorella. There's several other algae out there you can consume that are very healthy, but they're really expensive, and in general, they're not really anywhere near as healthy as spirulina and chlorella, so why bother? And that's why you see so much spirulina and chlorella. And then as far as looking at mushrooms, I mean, once again, there's very, very powerful, healthy mushrooms out there. Shiitake, reishi, maitake, cordyceps, endoki, Androdia camperata, which comes from Taiwan. Are very powerful anti-cancer agents. A lot of these have very strong immune system building qualities. So to once again, just throw them all together and say, okay, well, everything's the same, and you shouldn't eat any of these things, and they're all deadly, and they're all recycling agents is completely wrong. And Dr. Young, no offense to you or anything, but stick with the ionized water and the raw fruits and vegetables. When it comes to algae, you don't know what you're talking about.